Especially if it's cold. Oh yeah, that'll be some entertaining. Get some views for that. Yeah. You should expose it. A nice call. Went toward Watts. All right, well, it is 7 o'clock and time to begin our City Council policy session. We welcome everyone here. I thought we had everybody. I guess I didn't look far enough down the dais to make sure I wasn't missing someone. But we appreciate everyone being here tonight. Since Kent Bush, or Councilmember Bush, is standing, this is what happens when you show up late, Scouts. If you get in charge of the opening ceremony. So we're going to go ahead and turn the time over to Councilmember Bush for our opening ceremony.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Would you stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, as we meet here this evening, we're thankful for the blessings that we have, for this free land, for the opportunity we have of, as we have celebrated Veterans Day this week, we are thankful for the veterans who have protected and fought for this country and who continue to do so. Please bless them and their families. We're thankful for the people who work here and for the city, for the things they do for its residents and others, and for the citizens of Clearfield. We ask that thou would bless them with things that they need. As we make decisions tonight, we ask that thy Spirit will be with us to guide us, that we will be able to make the best decisions for our residents and for others who visit this city. Ask that thou would bless our police department personnel and fire department personnel as they protect our citizens, that they will be safe as they go about their business. These things we say in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Kent. If there's anybody here to speak tonight in our citizen comment period, there's forms out on the podium out there. If you want to fill those out and bring them up to our city recorder, that would help. We have minutes to approve from the August 23rd work session, the October 9th policy session, and the October 23rd policy session. Council, have you had a chance to review those minutes? Are there any additions or changes? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
August 23rd, 2018 work session, October 9th, 2018 policy, and October 23rd, 2018 policy session as they have been drafted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Those minutes stand. First item on our agenda is our open comment period. Again, I don't have any forms from anybody that was here specifically to speak to us, but if there is somebody that wanted to address the council, this would be your time. Okay, then we will move on. Next item on our agenda is to consider approval of Resolution 2018 R-14, authorizing Addendum 1 to the interlocal agreement with the Board of Education of Davis School District for school resource officers. And we'll turn the time over to Chief Cruzy to kind of give us some information on that.
Mayor and Council, tonight what you have in front of you is to consider an approval of a resolution that would authorize addendum number 1 to the interlocal agreement between ourselves and Davis County School District. What that addendum does, the original agreement was signed in 2016. It's reviewed every 5 years. This is an addendum to that would allow the school district, well, the school district is actually the one that approached us and says, hey, we have cameras in our schools, both our junior high and our high school. We want to give you, the police department, access to that closed-circuit television camera photo pictures in case there's an emergency in the school. This would allow our officers as well as our dispatch to get situational awareness if there's some sort of that's basically all this addendum does. It is password protected, and it would be restricted to our employees in the police department.
Very good.
Any questions?
So this would only be necessary in the time of emergency then, or was it?
Yes, I can't, trying to think of, with all the other equipment and how busy our officers are, I don't imagine that they're going to view it. Our school resource officers may be an exception to that, but our general officers or patrol officers and investigators would not be viewing that unless there was an incident.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Council, if there's any other discussion on that, I'd entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move to approve Resolution 2018-R-14 authorizing Addendum 1 to the interlocal agreement with the Board of Education and its officers and authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Councilmember Phipps?
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson?
Aye.
Councilmember Roper?
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson?
Aye.
And Councilmember Bush?
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous. Item number 3 is to consider approval of Resolution 2018-R-15 authorizing the development agreement with Syracuse City to make modifications to certain landscaping requirements for land located at approximately 700 West F Street in the western part of parcel number 12-065-0050. We're going to turn the time over to Spencer for some information on this.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Reorganize myself here. This item is a part of the request that we received from Syracuse City a short time ago for, excuse me, I'm going to slow down a little bit, a rezone request as well as a subdivision plat in order for them to expand their water towers over in the Freeport Center area. The rezone request was from what is currently M1 to PF. Additionally, they requested a conditional use permit in order to get towers that were 110 feet tall, which is consistent with the current tower they have. One would be removed, one would be kept on site. This request is, Syracuse City in our discussions with them is requesting no additional landscaping to be required. We discussed this with the council in a previous meeting, and the development agreement is really the document whereby we would make sure everything is followed. The one thing that was the one discussion point was that it would be maintained in perpetuity at the current level, and that it would be replaced if needed. And Syracuse City agreed to that, and so the document is before you this evening for approval so that we can enter into that agreement, construction of their towers and maintenance of the property in perpetuity. They are here if there are any questions for them. Syracuse, that is. Sorry.
Council, any questions?
I just wondered what their time frame is. Is this going to do this right now or next spring or when?
Yeah, so we're currently in design with the actual tank. So we're hoping within the next 6 to 9 months to probably start construction, and then it'll take about 18 months to actually build it. So.
Okay.
Very good. Council, any other questions? Okay. I should have you state your name for the record.
Sorry, Brian Bloman. I'm the city engineer for Syracuse City.
Thank you.
And I have to say, you guys have an awesome staff.
Yeah, we do. We like them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Discussion on that, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move to approve Resolution 2018-R-15, authorizing the development agreement with Syracuse City to make modifications to certain landscaping requirements for land located at approximately 700 West F Street and the western part of parcel number 12-065-005 or 0050. Let me make that clear. And authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Looks like all of our things tonight are going to require a roll call vote. So, Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson.
Aye.
Councilmember Bush.
Aye.
Councilmember Roper.
Aye.
And Councilmember Phipps.
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous. And item number four is to consider approval of ordinance 2018-26, amending the consolidated fee schedule, site plan review, conditional use permit fee, and enacting a fee for downtown Clearfield form-based code site plan review. And Spencer, we're going to turn the time back over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So this proposal to make changes to the fee schedule was necessitated with some recent changes we made to our conditional use and site plan sections of the code. So I want to be clear that this did not change the process whereby we require public hearings or the noticing of any sort. This was only relative to the process whereby these would now be processed as separate items rather than a conditional use and a site plan processed as one. Here on the slide, I don't know if you can see that very well. You catch the lights real quick. So the current combined fee for a conditional use permit and a site plan is $700. A home occupation is $200 with the residential conditional use permit is $350 and commercial is $350, and then additional fees there. A site plan.
We're getting them all but that one.
I feel like I'm in the spotlight.
Hey, there's that one.
So everybody stay awake.
Anybody need some popcorn?
So you'll want to stay awake for this. The site plan fee currently is $500 for an individual site plan, and so what we're proposing to do is to keep the current site plan fee at $500, but instead of just completely removing that $700 for a conditional use permit and site plan, to apply that fee to our form-based code site plan review. The form-based code, as it's been adopted, is a little bit more intense a review, and so we feel it's appropriate to maintain that fee in there, but maybe apply it to the form-based code site plan, since that is a specific, more involved in the review. So that's what staff is proposing at this point, is just to reallocate that $700 from the CUP SP process to the form-based code site plan process. So
Okay, we can go with the lights now, probably.
which one's you going to
Council, do you have any questions for Spencer in regards to this change? It's a pretty simple change. I would entertain a motion to put labels on the light switches so that future people can turn them off. Okay, fine, then I'll just take it, then I'll entertain a motion on the actual ordinance 2018-26.
Your Honor, I move to approve ordinance 2018-26, amending by deleting the combined site plan review, conditional use permit fee, and enacting a fee for downtown Clearfield form-based code site plan review, and authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Thompson, and a second by Councilmember Bush. Any further discussion? Okay, Councilmember Thompson?
Aye.
Councilmember Bush?
Aye.
Councilmember Phipps?
Aye.
Councilmember Roper?
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson?
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous. And item number 5 is to consider approval of ordinance 2018-25, amending Title 9, Chapter 2, Water and Sewer Backflow and Cross-Section Connections in the City Code. And we'll have Scott Hodge come up and give us some background on that.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, it's good to be with you this evening. Tonight, what we're proposing is to amend our current ordinance that controls our water system as far as cross-flow protection. It's really just some housekeeping things that are changing within the ordinance. The state, through the years, have changed names within their department as far as the regulating body. So we've changed those ordinances, the ordinance to reflect those changes. There's some minor rules in there as far as the state have amended to their policy of how they enforce backflow protection. So those are reflected in there. And then some just minor changes as far as definitions and things like that in the ordinances that we've made. The ordinances have been on the books for several years, and this is just a housekeeping thing to be more current with the way the state is regulating our water within our city. Any questions?
Council, any questions? Okay, thanks, Scott. Seeing no further questions, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move to approve ordinance 2018-25, amending Title 9, Chapter 2, Water and Sewer Backflow and Cross Connections in the City Code, and authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Bush and a second from Councilmember Thompson. Councilmember Bush?
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson?
Aye.
Councilmember Roper?
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson?
Aye.
Councilmember Phipps?
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous. Item number 6 is to consider approval of the award of bid for the Hawk pedestrian crosswalk at 300 North Street and rail trail to Hunt Electric. And Scott, bring you back up.
Be here for this one and the next one. Recently, the city went out, solicited bids to put a hot crossing at the intersection of 300 North and Barlow Street. Currently, that crossing is used as a pedestrian crossing for the trail as well as a school crossing. We wanted to improve the safety of that crossing by putting the signal up so as a pedestrian or somebody using the trail approaches that intersection, they can press a button, it'll trigger a light that will stop traffic so they can cross safely. A similar light has been placed in front of Clearfield High School last year about the same time they started construction on that one. So this is something that we're seeing more and more in use at these type of locations. We received 5 bids for this work with a bid of $58,505. We would recommend that they be awarded the project for that dollar amount, as well as part of the project. The cost for the steel posts and arms, and also the control cabinets, that was excluded from their bid. The city will be providing those elements, and we've already ordered those. There's a lengthy lead time on those elements, so we're trying to get a little bit ahead of that. So that will be also part of this bid, but is not reflected in the numbers as far as awarding it tonight to Hunt Electric. Any questions?
I have a question. We're going to keep the crossing guard there on that crossing guard. Okay.
Very excited for this. This is something that the residents in that area comment about quite a bit, and they'll be very excited for this. So I want to move to approve the award bid for the Hawk pedestrian crosswalk at 300 North Street and rail trail to Hunt Electric Incorporated with the bid amount of $58,505. Approve funding for the bid amount of, oh, it's in there twice. So with a contingency and engineering costs of $21,171 for a total project cost of $79,676, and authorize the mayor's signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, very enthusiastic motion. Very true. Yes. Councilmember Roper. Councilmember Roper.
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson.
Aye.
Councilmember Phipps.
Aye.
Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Councilmember Bush.
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous. Item number 7 is to consider approval of the award of bid for the Freeport Pump House remodel project to Saunders Construction. Scott?
Thank you, Mayor. Here again, we went out to receive bids on this project. Received 7 bids. Just to give you a little bit of background, the Freeport Pump House was a structure that was built by the Navy when they built the Navy base in the Freeport Center back in the early 40s. That pump house has been used through that duration for the purpose of pushing water in and around through the city Freeport Center. And then when the city took over the water system in the Freeport Center, we utilize it as well during the summer months to help push water throughout the city and help the pressure during the summer months, so that the pump house in the Freeport Center during the summertime is vital to our water supply for the whole city. So with that old structure down there, there were some things that needed to be updated. The electrical wiring was original wiring back in the 40s. We want to totally redo the wiring throughout that building. That will also necessitate new lighting that'll go in there. We'll drop the ceiling to clean up the facility a little bit. Also, there is asbestos wall board within that building. That asbestos wall board will be removed. And as we go in there, we'll do some other cleaning of older items that are in there that are no longer used, some piping and pump motors. Those will be removed. And wherever we can, we'll eliminate there's some underground tunnels. We'll try to eliminate and minimize underground tunnels underneath that structure as well. As part of the construction, we will put in a chlorination station, so we'll be able to inject chlorine into our water to help purify it, keep it within the water standards that the state requires. Currently, during the the summertime, as we pump water, we are unable to put chlorine into that water we pump. And so we really lose our residual chlorine as it goes out throughout the city centers that we're required to maintain. And then we also have a fluoride station that we will update as well within the structure. So the project, we received 7 bids for this project. The low bid did not turn in their bid documents, their bid bonds. They have 24 hours from the time of the bid opening to turn in their bid bonds. So we went to the next lowest bidder to do this project, who was Saunders Construction, and would recommend that the project be awarded to Saunders Construction for the bid amount of $223,076.
Okay.
Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Scott. Council, seeing no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Approve the award of bid for the Freeport Pump House remodel project to Saunders Construction with a bid amount of $223,076. Approve funding for the bid amount of $223,076 with contingency and engineering costs of $102,000 for a total project cost of $325,076, and would authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'm pretty enthusiastic about this.
Amen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Well, that brings us to item number 8, and I failed to mention to recognize our scout troop that's here tonight. So we have 672. Hey, 672. They're from the southeast portion of our city. So it's nice to have them here. This next section is a portion of our council meeting. This is our financial update. There is a test at the end. So pay close attention to the numbers. No, seriously, this is where your tax dollars go. Not maybe yours, but your parents' tax dollars. And Rich is going to give us an update on our financials right now as to where we stand. So, or maybe not.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's always the nights with the financial report that scouts seem to draw to this. It's like a magnet.
I'm not seeing anything.
No.
Hey, look at
There we
that.
go.
Downloading.
Oh, I don't want to mess with it. I don't want to mess.
Until it loads, Rich is going to sing a song.
Why is that so slow? Okay, no. I'm glad it's dark. I have a super red eye. My 3-year-old punched me last night in the eye, and but he was smiling and cute, so I couldn't get mad at him. But it's gotten worse throughout the day, so I don't know. So this is quarter 1, so it's July, August, September. It was difficult to get the information out for the new year. Time we're using the new software, so I was grabbing the prior 2-year data from the last software and the new year data of this current software. But in the end, it worked, and it's there, and it looks good, and it makes sense, so we're happy about that. It's finally loaded. Okay, so we're just going to go over the first quarter. There really is not much that was unanticipated in all of this entire report. And this is a summary of all of the financial data. We have more detailed information in the council packet if the public is interested in that. But this is a summary. This is the general fund. In the right column there, that we are budgeting to spend down our reserves by $1.5 million because of one-time capital projects. So this first $165,000 our general fund, but that is part of the plan.
Rich, is that right column the June 2019 budget?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I missed that. Good catch. Thanks, JJ. So we have the audit coming, and for FY18, that is correct. So we will find out what our actual beginning available balances, but we're pretty close to what the audit states. But as far as what we're using and what we plan to use in 19 is 1.5 million. Overall, this is our revenues in the general fund. Everything's pretty much tracking, just looking at percent of budget. Miscellaneous, we'll get to that. So we'll go through each one of these really quick. Taxes, 117,000 higher than last year's quarter, or 5%. Much of that is, well, that's the third bullet point for the energy use tax, 82,000 or 13% higher, which is much higher than we would have guessed for sure. Sales tax actual was 3.9% higher, just July, August, because we don't have September yet. But most of that, 6% of the increase was from the state side. The Clearfield point of sale side was down 1.3%. That's the first time we've seen that in a while. License and permits is up significantly. If you look at September of last year, 38,000, now it's 121. Most of this we're saying is attributed to West Square. And then you'll see other building related revenues higher throughout the report. The Aquatic Center was closed for most of September, and we saw it 46,000 less than last year, or 16% lower than the first 3 months from last year. Let's see, and then, well, I wanted to talk about charges for services. You'll see charges for services, even though Aquatic Center is down 46,000, the variance is 8,000 in charges for services. That's because recreation was 20,000 higher than last year, 8,000 higher than 2 years ago. And there was another, all plan check fees were higher by 20,000. So that overall made up for that part in that category of charges for services. Fines and forfeitures lower than last year, but still higher than 17. We have a new revenue source, which is exciting. Cell tower Lenius, it's $1,250 a month. And then we also received $30,000 from the Davis School District for Hog Crossing. So that's why miscellaneous is a little higher than 50% already. On the expense side, everything's tracked. It's 25% of the year, and everything's below 25%, except for debt service, but that is just because of timing. That was anticipated. I guess I should say that recreation is over budget, but we're going to make up for that in a vacancy saving. And there was another one. Oh, CDRA, CDBG pass-through. That's over budget. We'll have to do a budget amend because of the timing. We had FY18 stuff happening in 19 that we didn't anticipate. So that will be a budget amendment coming to the council later. But water consumption was down almost 5% in last year's first quarter. And about the same from the year before. Revenues is lower because 2 years ago we had $100,000 in impact fees, and we drastically lowered our impact fees, so that's just never going to look the same. Nothing interesting here. Everything's just tracking. And then just local economy or U.S. economy. This is the only point of data I'm going to show for this one, but wage growth went up 3.1%. This has been a concern for the economists because everything else is strong and robust, and they would have anticipated wage growth going up with that, and it just hasn't, and this is the first time it really has, so this could be a sign. Wages. But economists like that. I don't know if we like that necessarily, but economists like that. And then just local economy, I already talked about that, our Clearfield point of sale. Over here on the very left, this one has the sixth bar here. You can see it's decreased from the prior quarter on the point of sale, but the state increased. So this is just the Clearfield side of it. But I think I've identified the major outliers to what we expected in the budget. And again, it's just the first quarter. It's only 3 months of data. Are there any questions? Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
My only question is about wage growth or about the wages. You know, I'm really surprised that our point of sale is down, to be honest. because it really feels like more people are shopping around here. But is there, because of that wage growth, and things are starting, I'm seeing reports that things are also starting to cost more. Is that wage growth almost nullified to a degree?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they would say the cost of living has been higher for most people until wage growth is now kicking in to match that cost of living.
Okay.
And just the point on the point of sale, again, it's only 2 months, so it's
Yeah.
not a strong data point. It's just, could be a sign of something, but it's not enough data, I think, to worry too much about.
Okay.
Rich, on the first slide you showed, it shows that we're spending down reserves $1.5 million, which normally you'd look at that and go, that doesn't look good. And you mentioned, there's a plan for that. Could you just speak really briefly to what we're doing there and why we're spending that down and the necessity to do that? That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
Right. It's we've saved up money over time, and so you can see on this are all funds expenditures. We capital outlay, and this doesn't have the budget, but we have a lot of money budgeted towards capital. It's one-time expense. So if we have a bad year, we don't have to do capital expenditures. So operationally, our budget, we have a modest surplus, so we're fine that way. It's just we're using this money for one-time expenses.
Rich, to that point, I think what's telling is that the $400,000 in capital outlay year to date is only 2% of our budget.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Good point.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Appreciate the update. Well, that brings us to our communication items. As soon as the rest of the, do we have any more lights, or we, I don't know that we really, it just seems really dark in here still. There we go. We had the opportunity today to do a hard hat tour of the new G-Force facility. For those of you who haven't seen that, check out our Facebook page. Trevor did a nice post on that today. I got to tour the facility. This is where the old Taipan Trading was, just up 193. Awesome thing that's going to be. Kind of a cross between Fox and Dave & Buster's. Maybe a cross between Chuck E. Cheese and Dave & Buster's, but much more high-end, very high-tech. Lots of things in that building that'll be in there. It's hard to imagine that building was as big as it was, because I've been in it and so much of it was blocked off for storage of things you never could see it. But race cars and bowling and virtual reality, everything. Escape rooms, multiple escape rooms, all of this up there in one spot in our city. So we're kind of excited to have them progressing. They're hoping to be open by the end of the year. Tight time frame with a couple of holidays in the middle of there, but they're excited. They're moving fast forward. Roper and I had the opportunity this last week to attend the National League of Cities meetings in Los Angeles. Really amazing stuff we got to see. Scary things in some cases. We got to tour we'll give a much more detailed explanation of everything later, but we did get to tour the Los Angeles Fire Department. And see you, Scouts. Got to tour the fire department and the police department and be in their 911 center. Really cool. One of my wife's favorite TV shows right now is 911, and a lot of it's done, it's the mock-up of their place. So it's kind of fun to see that. But the tour that we were giving, they showed us their forecasting and the ability for them to look at conditions, weather, winds, rain, so forth, and determine what will happen with a fire. And he looked at the map and said, we'll do one hypothetically. There's we know that the Santa Ana winds are this time of year, they're kind of going, and we can see from this map that this is what's happening. And so we're going to drop a pin right here and see what happens. And here's the fire in 30 minutes, and here's the fire in 60 minutes, and here's the fire in 90 minutes because of these winds and all going down this direction. And rather ironic that the next day there was a fire. Fire was north, the first fire, but the day after they had the one pretty, but they used that for, not just for projecting what will happen with a fire, because as he put it in very straightforward, at some point you have to start putting water on a fire. You can do all the planning you want, but at some point you got to be there to do something about it. But that's their reason for doing it, is to forecast so that they make sure that their equipment's in the right places at the right time. So coming from the fire district mentality that we were taking on, it was really cool to see the predictive capabilities. I'd never imagined predicting where a fire would go and being able to determine how fast it would spread, but that was unbelievably accurate. It was daunting to be out there and see the fires happening, especially, and my heart goes out to the folks as they were in our meetings. LA's mayor, Garciano, Garcetti, thank you. Got to talk to him for a little bit as he presented to the NLC in a little private setting. But just what's going through that mayor's mind. But when I looked at the city of Paradise and realized that size-wise, that's Clearfield. And what we would do as a council and me as mayor, if with a disaster of any sort, and so that emergency preparedness that we're still so focused on is crucial. That was, we would look at something simple, relatively simple. The likelihood of us ever having something that would top to bottom wipe out our city but it's there. They never would have thought that a fire would have come down and leveled their entire city. So my heart goes out to those guys. I can't even imagine what is in their minds. We also got to ride scooters and had a wonderful time. The only accident was me. Okay. I stopped. So I didn't slam over the guy that stopped in front of me all of a sudden.
But I was right behind him. So.
Yeah, and I about took Tim out with me too. But that, yeah, he stopped all of a sudden because there was a little bump in the road and he didn't know what his scooter was going to do with the bump. And so he quickly did a little jog and moved. And I grabbed my brake, and those are front brakes only. And so the thing, kind of flipped. I survived. No tears are necessary. It was just my
We had
hands.
helmets on.
We had helmets on that almost fit. But as we talked, Tim and I both said this is something we need to get in front of. I did have the opportunity to sit down with the people from Bird Scooters. On that tour, we also saw the bikes, and then we saw the cars. And the electric cars that are parked and moved, and you could pick it up in Clearfield and drive it to Salt Lake and park it for the day and drive it home. Very awesome ways of getting rid of parking. And so it brought me back to our discussion a couple of weeks ago on the reducing of the guest parking from the 0.25 to the 0.15. Very interesting to see 3 massive and no parking at all. There is no parking inside of those buildings, period. Asking the folks there, where do they park? And he says, we don't. We just don't park. It's a downtown apartment building. We don't park. You take mass transit somewhere. You jump on the bus, you grab a scooter, you grab whatever. And I thought, interesting. We're not to that point, but when you want to build a walkable community, you cut out your parking and people will gravitate that way and they'll make it work because that's what's available to them. Obviously, they're renting for a little more than what we rent ours for. But in riding the scooters, did think we probably ought to get out ahead of this before our sister cities or the suburbs of Clearfield start. I did get to sit down with the one company, with Bird, and talk about what it takes and what's required. If we decided we wanted to do scooters here, what do they require? And they said desire. If we want them, they can bring them. They don't have any problem with it at all. He says they actually have a program they can drop one off at your house during, in the morning, and you can ride it all day, and you just rent it for the day. but it's something, we talked about Clearfield Station, and just the fact that there's a station there, they would obviously feel it important to be there. Future-wise, that's great access to get around Clearfield Station, but getting up to Weber State, getting onto Hill Air Force Base with bikes, getting, or scooters, getting to our different nodes in downtown or along state lends itself very, very well to the scooters and to the bikes. And so it's just something that as we move forward, it would be good if we got onto that before the others did. And especially knowing those needs that we have, if we can facilitate access to the base any way possible, that's a big deal. If we can, even more so, from right there at the train station to give access to Freeport, and to put a supply of those at Freeport and a supply at the station and be able to take those throughout Freeport would be huge. So anyhow, very, very cool. And then just for a note, so you can keep your eyes on the skies, on Monday, both fighter wings, the 388th and the 419th, we are now at roughly 50 F-35s up at Hill. Final total will be 72, but Monday there will be a combat power exercise where all of them should be flying at the same time. Photo opportunities and really kind of a demonstration of power to those outside of the U.S. to show what we're capable of. So I debated whether or not that was a good idea to show them what kind of power we have in Utah. Kind of put a big red bullseye on us to say, look what we have sitting here. But at the same time, what an amazing opportunity to show what we have capable. This is its own air show, so keep your eyes on the skies on Monday, because I'll be up on base with them to check it out. And so it should be a very cool experience. So that is all I had. Councilmember Bush.
This sewer district is on a calendar year budget. So last week at our meeting, we adopted a preliminary budget for 2019, and it's about $6 million less than this year's budget. Most of our projects at the plant have been done. We're in the process of building a building to house some of the trucks and equipment that haven't had any place to be inside. So that is in the process of being built. That was this year's money. We are in the process of looking at our reserves of what we have in our bank account future. It's good to have reserves, as we know, because a few years ago when we started doing all of these projects, there weren't any reserves. That's why the fees had to be raised for several years by, quite a bit of money, because there weren't any reserves to do any of the building that was needed. We're still doing the sewer line relining of those pipes that need to be, and in some cases, just here recently, we were going to reline down 2700 South. When they went in to do it, the concrete pipes had deteriorated too bad to put the liner in. It's probably going to have to be dug up and put in new pipe, which we know is a lot more money and timely, or time consuming. So there's always those things that we need to keep money in reserve for. But that being said, next month we probably should know what our reserves are, and we can look at the fee schedules, which looks like we didn't raise fees this year, and it looks like probably for the next several years we won't need to raise the fees because we have enough in reserve. So there will be a public hearing December 13th at 6 o'clock down at the sewer plant building for the adoption of, if anybody's interested in that, or if you want copies of the preliminary, I can get those for you.
Thank you. Councilmember Peterson.
To the mayor's point, this last week with Councilmember Phipps and our emergency manager for the city, John Meek, we had a chance to go up to the state of Utah for the State Emergency Operations Center and observe as they did a full-scale operation. And it was interesting to watch what it takes and the awareness and how you can bring that from a state all the way down to a local level in being able to respond across the board, whether it's transportation or medical or communication, to be able to assist to save lives and to save property if that's possible as well. And it was an incredible and raised a lot of questions that I know myself and Councilmember Phipps will be taking into this next year as far as ways that we can help our city be ready and areas to look and be better prepared that we wouldn't have thought of previously, so that if and when our city is dealing with whatever our disaster looks like, that we are better able to help and our residents know what they can do and what to expect here, and that we become one of those cities that does not make the news for the wrong reasons, that we weren't the ones that weren't ready, but we're there as a community and ready to weather that. So all in all, that's kind of on everyone's mind. Be ready.
It was interesting to actually be in there. They took us to their EOC, which has not been used yet other than for training. And it's a LEED certified, high-end certified, earthquake certified building that was crazy. That's probably about, 5,000 square feet that was in that room?
Easy.
For their EOC, with different sections, chairs, cubicles set up all over, and each one with a different color vest for certain functions that they were on, and their title on the back of their vest, and their manual sitting on the desk in front of them, ready to be used. And they bring them in once a year and have a scenario of some sort. And but to see something that massive, and it was like, well, that's just one city, but it's a city that's several times the size of the state of Utah in population. But, it's very cool. Councilmember Thompson, what you got?
So the mosquito abatement conference was educationally weird, but it was cool.
I would have gone with those same words.
The most interesting thing, first one, guy from South Africa talking about DDT and the usage of DDT and how public clamor almost harmed eradicating mosquitoes, because the reality was that someone took a small source and really pretty much like blew it up, and it made it more difficult to spray DDT in tighter places that it would work normally. And because of this anti-science view, it kind of increased the malaria in Africa and things of that nature. And so his main message was just warning elected officials and people on boards that, you have to try to rely on facts and science as much as possible, especially on things of mosquitoes. The second presenter was a person who survived West Nile virus. Just to look about how, I just never really imagined how important mosquitoes were. But the West Nile, and how he just had triggers and how it was he almost ignored some of them, but he ended up surviving because, he just got to a point where he said, I had to go to the hospital. And fast forward and to our meeting that we had last week, we had someone who claimed they had West Nile virus here in our county, and they didn't. So we just have to be really careful and educate ourselves on West Nile virus. Actually, matter of fact, the stats dictate for Utah, we had 11 human cases, which is a little bit more higher than normal, than the previous year, from what I remember. We also did have one death for West Nile virus, too, here in Utah. Outside of that, in our spray requests, our total for Clearfield, we actually only had 30 total spray requests for 2018, which is not bad. Other cities had a lot more. Some of our neighboring cities had, Clinton had 51, and then the cities that aren't even close to us didn't have as much. So Layton actually Layton had 36, so closer to our total. And then finally, the drone. That's what I really want to talk about because that's the coolest thing. The drone was crashed. So the Mosquito Abatement District has been trying to find a way to put this drone up to standards where it can get into areas where ATVs and humans just can't reach. And in this experimental process, the drone was crashed and parts had to be replaced. So it went down for a period of time. So we didn't get as big a sample size as we really initially thought we would get. But the results have been very good and very strong. For the drone summary for the time period, I believe it was July until, what are my notes? I can't remember. I know it started in July though for sure. We treated 11 different sites for a total of 109 acres and over 19 missions divided into 410 individual sorties. And Farmington Bay, that's the area where they really wanted to concentrate on, because I guess that's one of those areas where it's just really hard to get to. And I would, if I could just give any message to people working in the public, the drone was crashed because when the operator was working the drone, the guy was asking what you're doing, and it was in Farmington Bay, and he was trying to explain to him, look, I'm just trying to work the drone and get to the areas, and explaining it and trying to explain the battery died. And so the framing of the drone itself actually was fine, but the electronic components inside the drone were so expensive and burnt out that it was actually smarter for us to purchase another drone than to go through, purchase another drone through insurance than to try to replace the components directly, because replacing the components directly was actually way more costly than the drone itself. So mosquitoes, I got anything else on them? I think that's it. So yeah, that's pretty much on my report for mosquitoes. But just all I can say is that when the next season comes, please, I know a lot of residents might not be aware, but I am the mosquito guy. If you ever need anything, email me. I respond, or call. We want to keep you safe. That's all I got.
All righty, thank you. Councilmember Roper.
Allowing me to go with him to the National League of Cities, I went in with just a thought process to see if it was beneficial and worth it, and came out with great knowledge and education, and definitely is worth it to go and build the relationships with those from around our country. We look at the polarization of our country and did not feel that once there. It was amazing to see everyone from various communities across the country wanting to work towards the same goals, and in discussing issues that our city faces and they face. It was it was a great benefit to hear their ideas. I was able to show that I didn't just hang out with the mayor, ride around on a scooter, to go and tour Watts District, where the riots were, and see how they've been revitalizing that area. Not to the same extent, but my thoughts came to as we try to revitalize and redevelop our downtown area and other areas of our city, very similar to that of partnering with development partners. And they have a developer there who is doing most everything without the help of the city, in bringing in retailers such as Nike and Ross to a very hard-stricken area that has seen scars for years well before the riots occurred. And as they partner with the police there and build those relationships, it was very refreshing to see that. Also was able to sit through a class on focusing our budgeting towards what we want to outcome budgeting, to see and make sure that our budgeting ideas are what we want to gain from all of that. So, and also sat in a class on reducing our costs of emergency management, and knowing the resources that we will be able to pull for. They used a lot of examples from hurricane-stricken areas, but knowing they talked about the funds that your city will be able to assess, but knowing what funds will be there, because you'll have a lot of people there who will need to be educated on what they can use those funds for, what resources that they have. So it was a great opportunity to go and learn. I did spend some time with youth councils and commissions from across the country as well. Sat down at a table with about 8 youth and was able to ask them any questions, amazed at what we were trying to accomplish in our city, and loved the idea that we actually had a youth sitting on a planning commission. It's something that they said they would jump at a moment's notice. So it was nice to see to be leading in that area. But they gave me a lot of great ideas to implement here in our city. Would love to, my next thing is to work on getting our youth there, because I thought it would be very beneficial for them to sit there and develop relationships with other youth from around the country. So It's one of my goals for the next coming year.
That was really cool to see how many cities brought their youth councils. And, you know, not just a representative, but the entire youth council, and from some, what I would consider rather poor communities, you know, not well-to-do communities sending their youth councils there. And I thought, yeah, we talked about how do we fundraise for Send Some Youth with Us, because that would be kind of cool. Yeah, and you forgot the heroin movie.
Oh, the heroin movie. That was phenomenal.
We did get to see
We
the-
happened to just end up in that one together.
Yeah, which is the only thing we just kind of ended up by chance together. We both scheduled it, and I wasn't going to be there, and
Oh,
decided to go see
you
it.
weren't in the movie.
We weren't in the movie. We felt like we were.
No, but this was the lady that was on the show that had been on PBS on heroin recovery.
It's on Netflix.
Hey, on Netflix,
Yep.
excuse me. And with the officer in, the sheriff, first female sheriff in that area.
Fire chief.
Or fire chief, if she was a fire chief,
Yeah.
yeah, dealing with heroin recovery and their insane amount of calls. Well, they were the heroin overdose or the overdose capital of the U.S. Just incredible amounts of overdoses.
That led them to heroin.
Yeah.
Heroin is the next step from that. So, but to see her refreshing compassion towards them, I mean, it's really how we should treat everyone. But her ability to go in and just show them compassion and help them 4 or 5, you know, sometimes 6 times get back on that path, and with the help of their drug court judge, they have a phenomenal success rate of getting people off of addiction. And
It's a fairly small town too, so given the size that they are the capital of overdose, was kind of scary. But she was there in person to present and talk after an interview after the movie, so it's very cool. All right, Councilmember Phipps.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. As was mentioned, we were at the AOC, and that was fascinating. I've been to a couple fire camps in action, but to watch this was really enlightening. Not only 2 facets of that, of what support the state has for us in the event of an emergency, and then the concept of operations for that EOC and how it would operate on a much smaller scale. So I think it was very interesting and informative to be there at that. So a couple of other things. The Restoration Advisory Board that deals with groundwater contamination, I believe that sometime soon they will come to the council, so I don't want to take a lot of time there, but just to give you a status of that, I think mentioned it's really cool. They have a graphic that shows the shrinkage of the shallow plume that has dissipated substantially over the last several years and made tremendous success in mitigating that. One of the interesting side effects that I'd mentioned last time is in the mitigation effects of that, where they inject vegetable oil, that the side effect of that is methane gas, and because of the nature of the ground, it's being trapped under the street there. There's a bubble of methane gas. In order, and I think I mentioned before, they've done extensive testing in that area. They actually have testing wells in people's yards and stuff to ensure that, and they've tested all the houses to ensure that it's not permeating into anyone's home. But it is there under the street. They did drill a couple of wells there where they use a blow air through that, which brings it out, and as soon as it hits the air, it dissipates. You know, it may smell like a cow, but it dissipates. And it was remarkably successful, but the intriguing rubric is that it was, I win.
Oh, give that man an extra cookie tonight.
Is that within it, they monitored it. There is a phrase called lower explosive limit, which is a methane level when it's no longer a hazard. It dropped below that, but within a month it came back up to the current levels, which means that the stuff is doing its job and it's creating methane. So what they will be doing, and they started, is they did that to see how it happened. Well, they know it works but it will require more aggressive treatment. So they will be doing that about every 2 weeks. They will be essentially injecting air into the methane bubble, testing it shortly after that, injecting it until they can drive those levels down below acceptable levels. And so however it takes. And it goes back again, I've said, and I've defended this in a lot of different forms, the Air Force is absolutely diligent and responsible in mitigating all of this, not only in our plume, but throughout there. They are spending the money, they are doing whatever it takes to mitigate that. So the other thing is with Wasatch Integrated, one quick thing, that the thrift store that used to be run by Parker, but it now is banned, Park has withdrawn their involvement in that, and it is actually run now as a component of the landfill. So the concept is still there, but it's no longer Park. It was just the logistics of supporting it and everything like that was just too difficult for them. So it's unfortunate. It was a good thing for them, but I think we all agreed it just wasn't going to work. So, but the transfer station is well underway. It should be ready to go in the spring. But the major thing involves, and I've mentioned this before, the creation of a mixed waste processing facility, which is a long-term plan. Okay, some detail on that is that there's a proposal for a short of $20 million bond to build that facility. That with a $2 per can increase, that would be passed on to the municipalities. That bond would cover all of the costs associated with augmenting the facility, including the transfer station, and buying all the equipment. This is, and I've mentioned before, this is really a robust thing. This will produce essentially 3 recoverables from mostly the residential waste stream. One of them is the recovering the recyclables, the mixed paper, the cardboard, certain types of plastics and such things like that. Another that I'd mentioned before is to recover high butane kinds of materials, including current plastics that are not, there's not a market for them to be shredded and sold to the cement factory up in Croydon. So that's the second stream that will pull another. And then the third is what's the word? Putrids, which things that smell, household waste and things like that. We are in the stages of finalizing agreement with the South Davis Sewer District, which has spent a lot of money building digesters that is going to convert that material into gases, and they have already an agreement, contracts with Tesoro to buy the gas. And so we will be sending substantial amounts of that waste to South Davis that then will be processed, that will be sold on the market. So, it sounds like, oh, $2 a can, but this will this will take especially household waste and take 3 different waste streams out of that. One of them only marginally exists, where waste management is only essentially extracting 1 or 2 types of plastic and cardboard out of the waste stream now. And so, and the net effect, we've talked about this before, is that, you know, and I don't want to drive this, but I'll just blurt it out, the necessity of having an individual recycling can will be done away with, because what Wasatch Integrated will be recycling will be significantly more than what they do in that can. So the net effect for us, in my opinion, is a $3.90 increase. So, and Mayor, I should have brought this up before, because I've been steaming ahead with this under the assumption that we as a municipality would be supportive of this bond. And so if there's any objection to it, perhaps we need to meet in a more formal setting.
No, we've kind of discussed it, you know, in brief in the past, but
yeah,
it makes perfect sense. But,
it is important, because the parameter resolution will be on the agenda for the 5th of December, okay. And then the bonds will, the issuing of the bonds would be on the 2nd of January. So this is very real. It is intended to happen very quickly. The intent is to issue the bonds in January. The facility will go online. They look at an 18-month construction effort. And so the engineering is done, essentially, and so we're ready to then let it out to bid and get started, hopefully early spring on that. So, good. Anyway, so a lot is going on with talking trash, but any questions? I've got quite a bit of data here in case anybody wants to see the details on that. Basically also, so there will be the 3 recyclable streams. There will still be things using our current landfill, and also sending about 30% of the waste down to the Bayview landfill in southern Utah County. So those things all augment it, give us a 26 to 30 year additional life of that landfill. So
Very good. So they're not going to publish in our neighborhood the schedule for the and releasing the methane gas out. They're not going to publish.
No, what
that,
you're going to have to do is just go out there and start throwing matches. And
No, I just want to
no.
use it. I just want to be able to use it as an excuse. And if my wife has a schedule, then I can't say, "Honey, it wasn't blowing air."
No, but
Staff reports. JJ.
I'm not sure how to follow that up. Haven't been to any board meetings or commissions, so I don't have any reports on that. But first of all, I do want to say that given Veterans Day just a couple of days ago, my heartfelt thanks to all the veterans of our nation's armed forces, especially to the handful that we have on staff here. We're grateful to have them as employees and for their service to our nation. Also, the Mayor mentioned G-Force. A few of us last week were able to walk through of Urban Air, which would be just down the street from G-Force, and it's really exciting to have 2 entertainment centers coming online at about the same time. It's really fantastic and exciting. Next week, with the Thanksgiving holiday, the offices will be closed Thursday and Friday. Just a reminder there. There are a lot of exciting things going on in our development or redevelopment efforts. You can refer to the monthly report that went out last week for that information. And if you have any questions, by all means, please let us know. Hopefully Trevor or Eric can give an update on our 4th of July planning already for next year. And Trevor with other events coming up. So that's all I've got.
Okay. Nancy? Hopefully Trevor's paying attention. He'll be running in here shortly.
He usually is. For meetings, next week I have a meeting scheduled, but those of you who've let Trevor know that you'll be at the Community Network breakfast next week. I'm sure he'll have more information for you on that. The following week we'll be in work session and policy session. Hill Air Force Base Advisory Committee was going to come. I mean, the environmental people were going to come. They've pushed it back to January now. So
Okay.
They have been in contact with me, and we are working on
probably
a date.
because they probably want to have more information on the success of their program.
Yeah.
I would suspect.
So then on December 4th, we'll be in work session, and December 11th, we'll have work session and policy session as well. And then you get a break for the holidays, and we're right back at it in June. We won't come back till June. Right? So,
Okay. Trevor. Oh, we'll have Eric talk about 4th of July first.
Like with other events, he had enough, so I get to do the 4th of July update, and you know, it may seem a little bit early, but for those of you who've been around a little bit, we've already had our first meeting. We have a new parade coordinator. Tammy Shepard's going to be coordinating the parade for us this year, so we're looking forward to that. We've planned a few changes, nothing major. I think overall things work pretty well, and so a few minor changes this year will be we're considering moving the inflatables from the south end of the park over to the east ball field, where the fewest number of people sit, and using that area for the blow-ups and potentially a game trailer with AC and a whole bunch of video games inside to keep kids entertained when it's a little warmer. And then we'll open up that whole south end. People can observe the fireworks and have an unobstructed view there. Otherwise, much of it will remain the same. We'll begin at 6, I think, instead of the 4 o'clock. We had a limited number of people there at 4, and those that heard a really good band, and those that weren't missed out. But rather than repeat that, I think we'll go back to 6 o'clock. for the start. A lot of the coordination of the details and things are underway, and we'll meet again probably the first part of December, and then monthly for a little while after that, and then a couple times a month, and it'll get really busy. So, but that's the update for the 4th of July. Things are moving. We did increase the budget for the fireworks slightly for this coming year. That's the first time in more than a decade that that budget is increased. So if you liked the show last year, which I thought was fantastic, in that for this coming year. So we're excited about it. We got a lot of work to do, but we're on track. Okay. Any questions before I?
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Trevor.
Okay, I'll keep this brief since we're going to talk in just a minute anyways. But also to add on to the 4th of July, we are going to be curating the list of vendors. We're going to be going out and soliciting individually to the vendors that we want to participate. Have it less of a vendor focus and more food trucks to give more options to those who attend. That was one of the complaints last year. Is there was a lot of lines at a few food trucks, and there was not enough to fill that need. So we're going to try to bring in some good quality food, a lot of options for people to choose from to kind of narrow those lines down a little bit more, because we'll expect a larger crowd this year, just because word will probably get out on fireworks that they were pretty cool. And so yeah, so there's that. Other events coming up shortly on Friday this week. We do have an employee association bowling day. It's our turkey bowl. So if you wanted to participate in that, just let us know. We can get that you signed up for that. On the 20th, we do have our networking breakfast. That is at 7:30 in the morning. Try to see if a different crowd will come out in the morning, or if it's the same. We're just going to try it out this month and see if that's something we want to put on a rotation. So we've had about 35 to be close to what we were. And then after that, we do have our tree lighting ceremony on the 26th of November. So we've had about 250, 300 people respond on our Facebook event so far that we posted on Friday. So we're expecting a similar crowd to what we had last year. We want to thank G-Force for sponsoring the giveaway or the food for that night. So we're pretty excited for that night. It should be a good one. Allows you guys to mix and mingle with the public that's going to come. So we're pretty excited for that. So, and then after that is our Swim with Santa in December. So look for those.
Are we still online for the ribbon cutting or open house for the Have a Heart?
Yes, right before the tree lighting.
4 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you, Trevor.
No problem.
Any other staff reports? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn in policy session and reconvene in work session.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.